Aviation maintenance shops seem to perform miracles when getting aircraft ready for its operation schedules, and their hard work often gets overlooked. All shops, however, have a limit to their magic. This limit is often embodied in one or a few aircraft that always finds a way to break down no matter how much work is done to it. This is Lemon Law.
Lemon Law. That's a good way to put it, because you always have that one problem child that you spent 3 months fixing or canning parts from other vehicles to put on there. You finally get into a flight-worthy status, and it takes off. And like everybody's standing on the flight line with their fingers and toes crossed. And you're like, please, 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 just make it. Just go. And then you hear that RTB call or 10 mics out, and you're like, but you're not even in altitude yet.
It's like, you just left. What the? You got to leave long enough for us to miss you.
And then some aircraft even have such a reputation about being such a pile that the N number, everybody hears the N number, and you're like, wait, what plane's coming here? Especially if you got an aircraft that, goes between multiple sites or whatever, and you're like, what's coming here? Oh, and whatever. And you're like, oh, come on, man. Nope. Chief, tell that plane to turn around. Go.
We are in the middle of freaking nowhere. Get on your fancy radio, Chief, and tell them to turn around.
It's exactly how it feels, because you're like, we don't have half the stuff here that aircraft's going to require. I promise you.
Oh, man.
It's coming in here, so figure it out. And then 6 months later, it's stuffed in the back of the corner collecting cobwebs and dust.
Right. That one flight was the one that put it over. I'm like, oh, this is exactly why we don't want it here.
And that one flight was supposed to be the FCF after it came out of some sort of crazy maintenance for braking some otherwhere else.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God. You're totally reminding me of this one story, or this one instance, man. Like, they kept saying, like, okay, we're gonna bring. Well, they didn't say what aircraft it was. They were like, hey, we want us to do this project on this airfield or whatever the case may be. Like, okay, I don't like it, but whatever, you're the boss. I'm just going to make sure it gets done. And then maybe some 2 days before the actual project is supposed to kick off, they mention that said N number aircraft or whatever that aircraft is. I'm like, oh my fucking God, are you serious? Why? We don't have anything here for that. We don't have the qualified personnel for it. We don't have the proper GSC for it. And then, like you said, MVP, well, adapt and overcome, figure it out. Like, oh.
Like, wait, what's the issue it's coming in for? It's got a gear that won't retract. Well, we don't even have jack stands here, so we can't work on it. Mm-hmm. Well, it's landing here. But what do you want us to do? Like, I can't troubleshoot. I can't put it in the air, But then you start playing that tag, right? Each airfield and unit maintenance crews, they start playing that tag with it. They start going, okay, just duct tape it enough together to kick it out the door, and we'll send it in a beeline pattern over there, and hopefully it'll make it there. And then it'll break. I'm air quoting here, break overhead and not be able to RTB, so it's got to land there.
Oh my God.
Under emergency. And that's what happens. You're like, it gets overhead and you're like, hey, what now? Oh, it's just magically broke here. I think people on the ground at the other base, like, it just right overhead, huh? Just happened to break here. Interesting. Great. And the controllers at each place start calling one another. You're like, you son of a bitch. I knew what you're doing. I'm going to get you back.
God damn it. I knew this was you. You did this on purpose. Oh my God. So true on so many occasions, man. And I feel some of them do that on purpose just to get it out of their hair. Like, yes, thank God.
Oh yeah. That's exactly what it is. 100%. That's what it is. Like, I don't want to see it in this hangar anymore. We're going to patch it together enough that it can take off and make it, 150 miles to the other location. And that's where it'll break.
Yeah. I noticed, man, about some of those aircraft, it's usually like the show pig or the showbird for that airfield, that unit, that project. So, like has like that fancy paint scheme or has that fancy name or whatever the case may be. And you would think it'd be so awesome because it's named as such, painted as such. But it's like total ass. Like it's more headache than what it's worth.
But the reason it became that is because it wasn't worthy enough or reliable enough to send out on missions. So yeah, we can do dog and ponies with it. We'll keep it here. We'll let the commander fly it. It can do at least one lap around the airfield, and then land. So let's name it something fancy, paint it cool, and that's all it's going to be good for.
Right. Like what's that one scene in Iron Man 2? Like, I can make presentation, not demonstration. Presentation, no fly, no shoot.
Yeah. It looks the best, and it's the cleanest, and it's the prettiest, right? The shiniest object in the hangar. Mm-hmm. But the beauty's only skin deep on that one, or paint deep. Right. You get below the primer, and it's a pile of garbage, man.
Right. Matter of fact, I get real sketchy when I see planes like that. Like, it's just pristine, like phenomenally just A1. And then you're like, wow, this thing must be really new. It's like just literally rolled off the assembly line. Like, oh no, this thing's like 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here.
Hasn't seen the air in forever, but it's like a Vietnam era bird. And you're like, okay. All right. So you get in there and it's going to be like literally like pop cans. That they've zip tied around lines to hold it together. Right.
That's pretty accurate, man. Like, you pretty hit the nail on the head on an aircraft like that. Because we actually had one like that. It was one of the planes we had at a training unit. So pristine, so nice, so awesome from the outside. But you look at the maintenance hours versus the flight hours, it's like a difference of a factor of 10. Like, how the hell does this thing have so many flight hour or maintenance hours, and it has like maybe 50 total flight hours? Like, what's going on with this thing? And then it just basically it's a static display at this point. Like, it's more for show. Like, this is what it looks like when it's fresh than what it looks like when it's actually working.
Yeah, this is what it looked like brand new off the assembly line in 1956.
Right. So like, what do you think like leads to majority of the Lemon Law problem child aircraft to be the way it is?
I don't know. I was just thinking that myself, because there's a lot of aircraft that I've worked on, and at some point almost everything's been replaced. All major components anyways have been replaced on that airframe, and you start going, why is it still having problems? What's going on? And you start thinking, is it cursed?
Right.
Somebody put a hex on this thing? I don't understand, or is it just for that model type and year, and there's a certain batch number of, right? So let's say for a certain seal, they made 2 million of those seals, but the batch number for those seals turns out that they were bad, but that's the only ones you can get to replace them. And so every time you have to replace that seal, you just keep getting a replacement seal, but it's from that same bad batch, but they got to use them up, right?
Right.
And so they just keep sending you and sending you and sending you and sending you the same bad seals. And it just keeps having those problems because I don't know. I mean, I know I had an issue like that with my truck at one time regarding a wheel bearing, but I wonder if I think it's the same thing probably for aircraft too, right? You'll get a bad batch number, but it's not for a uber flight critical component. So if it goes bad, it'll make it home. It's not going to be a fall out of the sky situation. I don't know. That's the only thing I can figure out is that's just for that year type of model. They made so many of a certain parts, and the quality may not have been the best, and they didn't realize it until 3 decades later, but they still have all these laying on the shelf. So that's what you're going to use.
Right. And I think this is like on the smaller percentage of chances this could happen, but I think it also is because of what we're actually using that problem child for. Like, because we already have this notion like, okay, this thing sucks ass. We could only use it as like a show plane or like a demonstration flight. So that's all we literally use it for. So it only has like maybe 1 to 2 flight hours like every 3 months. And with most planes or most any kind of machine, the less you use it, the more chances of it having something break. So if it's already been designated like, okay, this is just the show bird because it's so clean, it's so awesome, we only want X amount of people flying it or certain type of person flying it, that the chances of them actually getting in there and doing it is probably like I said, like once every so often. So it's just sitting there, just dying in the shadows. And then when we finally bring it out to break off the dust is the only thing that's holding it together. And then when it finally gets up in the air and starts doing its aerodynamic forces or whatnot, it breaks the dust loose and everything starts falling apart.
Well, that goes back to that hex thing that I was saying. The aircraft's mad at you. Oh, you want to fly me? Oh, I'll show you. Or think about as we're getting older, right? You know, you used to be when you were 20 years old, you jump out of bed and muscles are still malleable. Your joints and ligaments are still soft and flexible. And now I get out of bed and it's like, crack, snap, crackle, pop, God. And it takes you a minute to loosen up. And I think that's what some of those aircraft are. So the longer it sits around, the more stiff its joints get, so to speak. But I think also, like you were saying, what it's used for, right? So they know they're only going to get a certain amount of flight hours per month due to whatever. Like if it is a showbird, the commander is the only one who's going to fly it. He's going to take it out and just for his currency, but he's also probably a skilled or above average pilot, so he's probably going to be a little rougher on it than what it's really intended for, at least for a bird that doesn't fly too often and for its age.
Right.
So it might sit for 2 or 3 months in the commander, and then you get that morning of, hey, I'm taking this jet out today. Get it ready. Oh, okay. All right, so you pull it out of the hangar and, like you said, blow the dust off of it, get it all ready to go, and then he puts it through the ringer in 2 laps around the airfield, just pulling crazy G's and all different power settings, and then hits the ground as hard as he can, just shy of a hard landing inspection. Rolls in and says, "Sounds good, but it's got all these problems. All right, have a good day." And you're like, back to square one.
God damn it. Yeah. Oh man, I'm having so many scenarios run through my mind right now for that exact reason that you described. Like, and it's usually something like that, right? Like, oh, this is the boss's bird, or this is like the CEO's bird, or whatever the case may be. So like, it only flies when he wants to do it. It's like his own personal.
Yeah, I mean, they got his name painted right below the cockpit, right below the glass or the dome or whatever.
Yep. So, and that's like his personal Corvette that he flashes every so often just to kind of flex on the block,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But then it turns into like just that exact same vet, like it has trouble starting. It has trouble getting its fluid pumped through because it's been sitting so long. So it's now basically kerosene. So you're pumping kerosene through the lines or whatever. Yeah.
And you didn't bother preserving it because at any point he could come out and say, "I'm taking it out today." So, So most aircraft have a, 60-day, 90-day, 30-day, 120-day, whatever. There's some sort of a preservation you'll do depending on how long the aircraft might sit. And that, and the commander's his own personal Corvette, as you said, it could sit for anywhere from 30 to 180 days. You don't know, but you don't know when the next time he might come out and say, "Yeah, I'm taking it out today." So It's always got to be in a, air quotes again, ready state.
Yeah.
But, it just doesn't work out.
No, this is kind of going into like it being a little bit of like a wind chime or a hangar queen just collecting dust. But like you said, these things, they need to move. They need to have a reason to exist. And if their reason is just collecting dust in the shadows of a corner, then your likelihood of something breaking or failing is significantly higher than if you just ran it to the dirt until something failed. Now, there's a give and take for either case, but in most cases, you kind of want to find that balance where, okay, we fly it enough to kind of keep its fluids fresh. That's one way of saying it.
Or you just do ground runs just to keep the oil circulated,
Yeah.
And hydrofluid circulated, but that's about it.
How many times have you and I ran through that where a plane would just sit there for weeks, months, even sometimes a whole year, and they won't do a single thing to it, not even so much as turn on batteries to see if it's still holding a charge, No,
the only thing that we would do is go through and hand rotate the props through a couple times just to keep it from hydrolocking in a piston motor,
Right. And then you take it out for an engine run or a ground check for like, say, training purposes, for instance. And then all these faults pop up like, oh my God, what the hell's going on, right? And then,
oh my God, yeah. Every time. Like, we were just doing training. How did we break all this stuff? Oh, no.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
But training's not going to be the one to fix it. It's going to be you. So now you got to waste time on the training bird. No.
No. Oh my God. So many times. And then since it's not actively in the operation schedule, it gets put on the back burner like honestly it should be. And then it just gets forgotten about until it goes again for another training run, or if say the boss man wants to fly it, and then it becomes like number one priority, and you gotta do all these backlog maintenance to get it up to speed and just pray that it's able to survive a lap before it comes back down.
Yeah, you've got to do six months of maintenance on mid shift, the night crew. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
right before he goes home at 5 o'clock the day before, he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm flying tomorrow, and it's a 7 a.m. takeoff." Right. Oh, well, this will be fun. Sure. I didn't have anything else I wanted to do anyways, so might as well just be here for 24 hours.
Yeah. And of course, since it's the boss man flying and his bird, you run through extra steps to make sure it's as clean as can be, as well tuned as it can be. Everything's functioning the way it should be for whatever he decides to do for that flight. So you're doing all these extra checks and all these extra, evolutions to make it all pristine for, 1 to 2 hours of a flight for him to break it again. And then it's back in the corner, never to be seen again.
Well, and that's assuming he doesn't end up scrubbing it last minute because he has a more important meeting to go to. How many times that happen?
Oh my God.
Jump through your ass to make it happen. And he's like, just kidding, guys. Good run. Good training exercise. Yeah. But I got a thing I got to do.
I was like, oh my God. It's like, well, are you going to fly it tomorrow? We'll just have it gassed up for tomorrow. Like, no, I don't think so. Oh, God damn it.
No, I'm heading out of town for 2 weeks. Oh my God. Why?
God damn it. And then I think the same lemon law or same problem child aircraft has like a higher probability of someone inducing a problem, like, oh, someone lost like a wrench in the cockpit area. I'm like, God damn it. Why is it always this plane? It's always this plane. Like, if something doesn't break, we're breaking something. God damn it.
That you bring up a good point, because now that I think about it, in many cases, the lemon law bird is actually like number one of that type model series,
Mm-hmm.
It's the test bed. So it's used for training. It's used for both aircrew and maintenance training. It's used for the dog and pony shows. It's used for test beds are always putting things on and taking things off of it. And so I guess probably through that harsh life, it also becomes the turd that it is, because it just it's just tired. It's just beaten up,
Yeah, it's all poked and prodded, like it's one of those like surgeon practice dummies, like you cut it up, stitch it up, cut it up, stitch it up, and after so long it's just made up nothing but stitches.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's kind of how it is. And it just, when you were talking there a few minutes ago, that just reminded me that I'm like, the ones that I've noticed, and even recently too, with certain aircraft, is that the ones that seem to be the biggest problem childs and spend their eternity tucked into the darkest corner of the hangar are number one of block one of whatever specific type model. They get they have like decades worth of test wire hanging out of them, from old tests that's no longer used, and they don't take it out. They just keep stuffing more in, and you get training's hands involved, and they're a bunch of ham-fisted hooligans, and they beating the crap out of everything. And then you get pilot trainees in there, and like, what's an aircraft? They supposedly have a pilot's license, and they take off and they do all sorts of stuff they're not supposed to do, and smack it into the ground when they land. And I did good, right? Yeah, you did good.
You did good, all right. You're about to get it good. Don't run. Don't walk away. You're about to get it good.
Yeah, don't go anywhere real quick. Just real quick. Let me talk to you behind the hangar real quick.
Yeah. How do you over torque on takeoff? How do you over torque on takeoff? God damn it.
And like, I know in the corporate world, we talked at the beginning of the episode, we had talked about you learn, the N numbers. Mm-hmm. And certain N numbers have live in infamy, so to speak. And you're like, what am I getting called out for? Oh, Hawker? A Hawker what? An 800. Okay. And is there a revenue flight tomorrow? Yes. Great. Well, I'm just going to need you to bring another aircraft in as standby, and just in case this one's not going to get fixed. And the reason I say that is because it's not going to get fixed. Not in the time you want it to get fixed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just have another one on standby so the customer doesn't lose a flight and you don't either.
Right. And then say you get a problem child or lemon law plane that has one specific problem that's common all the time. You know, like, we have this N number aircraft, the number one engine runs slower than the number two, or it picks up the load a lot slower, or its caution lights blink, or they pop up like a solid 2-3% later than they should, or some shit like that. And then, but you can never find out what's causing it. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, just shy of a full gut, you can't figure out what the hell's causing it. So you just kind of like just MEL it or defer it, like whatever. Caution light pops up 2% later than it should. So they got to kind of math it out in their head. Like, okay, what's minus 2% of this? Oh, okay. And then they get like a little grease pen and just kind of mark it where it's supposed to pop.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I know I've had entire interiors, cockpits and cabins and galleys ripped apart, pinning out wires and chasing through their circuits and trying to figure out, like you said, what causes that delay or whatever the issue is. And again, shy of replacing all the wiring inside the aircraft, you don't know. But it's not one of those situations where it still works, not 100% as it should, but it's in that 90 to 100% range. So it's MELable. Well, just leave it on the MEL list for the next 5 years and we'll readdress it at that time. Or hopefully maybe we'll sell the aircraft by that point. It's somebody else's problem.
Someone else's problem. Right. That kind of reminds me of what's that movie with the telepathic girl and has like a dad as a used car salesman?
Oh, Matilda.
Matilda, yeah. You know that I kind of feel like that's how that problem child is like that used car where you kind of like throw sawdust into the engine so it stays quiet. You're doing all kinds of this dumb shit like you should never do, but it lets it run just smooth enough to make its flight. Like, let's run the oil a little rich today, or let's have the carburetor turn off later than it should, or some shit like that, just to give it a little bit of extra oomph, to juice it up enough to get it going, not cause any significant problems that the pilot can feel or notice, and then land back like, all right, we should probably reconnect that, drain this, or re-rig it so it's supposed to do it. So for as far as they know, everything's pristine. But we know, like, of all the ninja fixes that went into it to kind of just get it to do what it needed to do.
Oh yeah, especially when you said rigging, you're like, oh, this one always flies left wing low for some reason. Mm-hmm. Well, let me just adjust that rigging. Is it within tolerance? Sure, let's go with that.
Right. It's
definitely within tolerance. It flies level for you. Maybe not to the manual specifications of flying level, but it definitely flies level.
Right. Oh man, I remember this one
time. Turnbuckles all maxed out,
Yeah.
Holding on by like 1 or 2 threads.
You see the no-go hole is like maybe just like a hair away from being out of limits. Like, just roll it, dude.
If I squint, it looks like it's in. That's good.
Right. Oh man, I can't remember. I remember they had this one aircraft. It was left wing heavy for the left wing heavy for the longest. Like, when we fuel it to its specified tolerance, it's going to lean heavy to the left. Like, what the fuck is going on with this thing? So the fix, air quoting fix, was to put more in the right than we do on the left, so it kind of evens itself out. It's not right, but like, I mean, you're not going to know.
So I had one similar to that, but that's because like the check valves would just seep slightly, so it would always bleed fuel from left to right.
Yeah.
Or I mean right to left. And so same fix was put more fuel in, and you had to do that quick math in your head, like, okay, well, if they're going to take off at this time, if I fuel it 2 hours ahead, the leak rate is such and such so many pounds per hour. So by the time they take off, it should be evened out about that. It's just
right.
Instead of replacing check valve, like, well, why don't we just replace the check valves? No, that costs money. It costs me nothing to have you do math. Oh, great. Fun.
Right? Like, oh my God, math, no, my greatest weakness.
And I'm the worst at math. I'm like, hey, can somebody check this real quick, please?
That was me, man, when it came to doing torque matching or like torque of the day. So like if this aircraft takes off, it should hit torque at this level.
On helos, right?
Well, helos and like some fixed wings that I've done. Well, like say like for like the older style ones where like everything is all mechanically and spring driven. So we would have to torque match these engines. So they load share correctly. And we ran into this case where we would have a torque split on the ground when it's just sitting flight idle, like, ooh, like this ain't right. This ain't right. I mean, that's a clear sign of mismatch rigging, but still, you know, like when you would have to actually do the math to torque match it, like, wow, I fucking suck at this. Well, hope for the best, you know, like try not to make too huge of adjustments. So like when they actually input power, it doesn't go brah and just spike to the red like immediately.
Oh yeah, it's one of those where like each flat of the nut that you have to turn to make the adjustments is like 5% or whatever, you know, or 5 psi or whatever it is that you're adjusting. But you're like, well, I got to make a 32, you know, psi or whatever adjustments. You're like, should be like 4 flats.
Yeah.
I hope this is it. You know, try not, again, you go real slow, like, nope, not enough. And then you got to shut it down, go up there, adjust it and run it again. Nope. Keep back and forth, back and forth.
Yep. And you know what, man, like, and especially when you adjust flats, sometimes when you hook it back up, it doesn't line up right. I'm like, so then you got to do all kinds of other shit. Like,
yeah, you're right.
You know, then you got to lengthen the cable, shorten it back down again, or you got to lengthen the rod inside so they jive up. Like, Jesus, dude, like this is so fucking hard. Like,
well, yeah. And then you were talking about springs as well. And then like, you know, over time, we all know, you know, in the manufacturing process, not every spring is sprung, you know, at the same time, so to speak. So you get like some springs are a little weaker than others. So your rigging has to go into adjust to take up for that spring's inabilities, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, man. I totally suck when it comes to like flats and percentages. I'm like, well, one flat is 3%, but one full turn is 6. Like, what? Wait a minute, what? How did that come into feel like?
Yeah, you start reading the manual like 6 times in a row. Like, does this? Somebody else come read this. Does this make sense to you?
Right? I feel real stupid when I read it. I'm like, wait, 3 flats is 1 flat is 3%, but 1/2 turn is 6. But 1/2 turn is 6 flats. What the fuck?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Am I reading the wrong thing?
Right.
You start looking at your manual reference. You're like, no, I'm in the right section. I'm under the right chapter.
Right. I'm using the right manual for the right plane. You know.
Yeah, you start questioning everything. You're like, hold on. Let's just start over again from square one. Let me go check out another manual and see what it says. Right.
I hated manuals like that where like it's modification specific, you know, and some of the mods are like just maybe like a hair's difference, you know, like, okay, like airplane X mod A is this, and then airplane X mod B is this, but the difference is like, okay, one's light blinks at X% and one blinks at X.5%. Like, God damn it.
Or one's oil pressure is, it's I guess it's like the U2, right? They say when it's up at altitude, 10 knots can either overspeed it or make you fall out of the sky.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
What a freaking drastic difference.
But I mean, I've talked to some like U2 people who worked on them and who flew them, and that's what they said. I'm like, God, that's a really, really small tolerance, you know? But it's just like that.
So yeah, that margin for error is like real slim.
So we've talked about the lemons of the aviation world. Shoreline, are there any lemons of the audio world?
Honestly, I want to say the closest thing I probably have to a lemon in my experience is a specific truck that we have at our shop. And it is just the worst. Like it'll go out on one show. Oh, there goes the transmission. It'll disappear for, you know, a few weeks. Everybody thinks that it's gone and nobody talks about it because we're like, oh, cool. This truck finally died. Awesome. Never have to drive it again. And then it'll just appear randomly out of fucking thin air. And it every time.
It's like
every
a ghost,
time.
man.
It really is, man.
Pearl.
We're like, oh, cool. Truck 2 finally died. It finally left. Nope, it's back.
You're exactly right, though. Talking about your truck, like you think you finally killed it and you'll never have to deal with this thing again. And then magically, again, like the black pearl coming out of the mist, there's that lemon law, be it a truck or an aircraft. And it just shows up like to haunt you. I think it does it. That's what I'm telling you. I think they're cursed. It has to be. It's the only reason. It's the only thing that makes sense.
I think that's part of it, and also people not being willing to let go of either what that truck stands for, of the fact that they're not having to pay on it anymore because it's from the fucking 80s, or whatever. It refuses to die every time, and it sucks because I am one of 3 people that can actually drive it.
So it's exactly right. Not being able to let go, that makes a lot of sense because, again, back to talking to, like, say, the commander's bird or whatever. I mean, this was the first aircraft I was qualled on when I joined in 1979, and I got qualled on this in 82, and it's been my bird ever since. And hard charging, like, yeah, but it's 2021. Like, there's a reason this is one of 2 in existence still flying. You know what I mean? It's not because it wants to. It wants to die with its friends.
Just let me go. Just let me go. Shit, there was a movie like that where it's like, just let me die. And then they're like really selfish about like, no, you must stay.
It's like that Rick and Morty, Mr. Meeseeks. I just want to die. Your failures are your own, old plane.
Right? Oh my God. Like, that's
God.
Wow. Epiphany moment.
Yep. So I don't know, man. No matter what with the lemon laws, they just never seem to get better. They only ever seem to get worse with time. No matter what you change both engines, change the hydro systems out. You've changed even like whole landing gear. You've changed out, and they still just don't seem to want to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like their soul is trapped. Like that's what's killing the aircraft. Like, just let me die. Like you're just cadavering like different parts to kind of just keep the blood pumping. But like other than that, it's like
like you said, they're Frankensteins, right? Because they're typically test beds and trainers. So they've been crashed, they've been rolled, they've been ran into stuff, they've been smashed, they've had systems blow out on them, and they just keep getting patched back together. And like your Shoreline was indicating, like, is it because if the thing's paid off, or we don't cost too much money? Because I feel like what we're putting in maintenance, we could have had a new one by now. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. Whoever's making that call, maybe it's a nostalgia thing.
Yeah. Ooh, man. I think you guys hit the nail on the head on that one. Like, matter of fact, yeah. and it's usually because like, oh, this is painted by such and such, or this means that, like, it's more of a symbol than actually doing what it's supposed to do.
And that's like, cool, leave it, paint it the cool color scheme and move it over to the air park. Like, just let it be on display.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, man. Like I'm in looking things through a new perspective. I'm like, I never thought of it that way. Holy shit.
I mean, I wasn't really thinking it until Shoreline said something either. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. Cause typically the person running the show has been in the game quite a while. So an aircraft that was new 30, 35 years ago when they first got in, that's long since been outdated and passed up by time and technology. But it's what they knew, right? It's what they cut their teeth on. So they always have that. And I think I'm probably guilty of that. I think all of us are probably guilty of that to some degree.
Yeah.
You cut your teeth on it. That's what you learned on. So it's got that special place in you. And yeah, it might not be the most effective asset out there, but you're like, no, it's number one, Yeah,
it's number one in our hearts, man.
I think we figured out why we have the lemons still hanging around.
Wow. Thanks, Shoreline. You really just blew our brains on that one.
You're welcome.
Wow.
Had an epiphany today. Oh my
yeah,
God,
no
I wasn't
kidding.
expecting that.
Mine implosion, explosion, implode, explode. Oh my God.
At the same time, that's how black holes are created.
Closing thoughts, MVP.
Well, I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head with certain topics we covered today, but your lemons have always been around, and they'll continue to be around. Because as time marches on, a lot of us, as we become the old timers in the shop, we can't let go of the past for some reason. And so we'll hang on to our youth in a sense and continue trying to patch those piles together until some young buck comes up behind us and says, "Get this crap out of here. Get it out of here."
Right.
And then at that point, that's when we retire.
Yeah, right. Like, no, you're standing there in the museum like, "Hello, old friend. Here we are, just stuffed on display for others to mock our existence."
Then the Titanic music starts playing.
Right. It was 54 long years.
Oh my God.
I just saw my future. I don't like it.
I know, I did too. I just fast forwarded a little bit, and I don't want to. Just rewind for a while.
So, like again, we say with these lemon law aircraft, I mean, certain things you just like. It's like these cursed gripes. They're just gonna keep popping up, and shy of you replacing literally everything, it's gonna keep coming up until it's just time to put it away and let it go on display or put it into the boneyard, wherever the case may be, where aircraft go to never exist again. And just move on to the bigger, better things until such time happens. I mean, the best you can do is just do the maintenance right and do it by the book. So it's as functional as you can get it for whatever limited missions or objective you can get it to. And just kind of let them know, like, this should never do anything besides this type of flight, as limited as possible. Just do that. Because otherwise you're running a risk of that said aircraft failing and then possibly causing more problems than just a blown engine.
Yeah, let it live in the local airspace, and that's as far as it goes.
It's like a kite at this point. Just put a string to it, like make sure it's able to guide its way back down.
Kite. And with any luck, maybe it'll get struck by lightning. Put it out of its misery.
Oh, man. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good day.
We'd like to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to keep producing episodes, bring on guests, and keep Shoreline ever the happy to produce our show, with special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Stephanie Boatman, Jenny Dignan, Ryan Frushauer, Daniel Schubert, and Steven Shivers. Thank you all, our patrons, so much for all your support and, again, your patronage. If you have ideas, topics, or stories for the show, or you would like to be a guest on the show, visit cancelformaintenance.com and drop us a line on our Contact Us section. We will do whatever we can to get you and or your ideas onto the show. Check out our sponsor, Rockwell Time, for all sorts of outdoors and sporting apparel such as watches, safety-rated sunglasses, and snowboarding goods. Visit rockwelltime.com, use code CX4MX, and save 10% off your purchases. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/cancelformaintenance. Patronage, again, allows us to continue making episodes and maintain our gear. Patrons also get exclusive perks such as access to our Discord and discounts to our upcoming merch.